welcome to the Musician Secrets podcast. Today I have Jeremiah Higgins with me. Welcome.
But I stopped, stand, lift up my hands, surrender to the beat and the melody.
Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, of course. You are like the real deal. Yeah, it seems like there's not a lot that you can't do because you're a guitarist, you're a producer, you're a music teacher, you're a songwriter, husband, you have two amazing girls, a dog, Miles, so you seem to have it all.
I don't know if I have it. I'm not going to complain. I'm very blessed.
Yeah. No, it was really cool just to, just get to know you a little bit and also just like listening to your music. And that's what really made me want to reach out and be like, I need to know this guy. Like, I need to have him on this podcast.
Thank you. I'm excited you reached out. It was a surprise to me. And I'm, like I was saying earlier, always willing to sit down and talk about music with anybody, really. So
same here. So just walk us through your journey. Like obviously you're from Chicago, as you can see in the back. But what got you into music? What got you into songwriting?
So I grew up in a musical family. My dad was kind of a weekend warrior, pianist and guitarist, so he'd like playing like cover bands, and he did up until probably the last 5 years. And that he's like, I can't carry around a giant keyboard anymore. I think his body finally said no. And then my mom actually was a piano performance major for a short stint. She ended up changing majors to education. She's a special ed teacher, but they met in music school. So they were like in college, meeting in music school. My mom was playing like circles around my dad and piano. She is the better musician out of the two of them, I would say. Even though he's done it as a living, she's just more naturally inclined to. I remember growing up, she'd sit down and like rip off like Rachmaninoff concertos without like stuff that she memorized. And she's crazy. She's crazy. So I grew up around that and in the church. They both played in the church that they always have played in churches that we have attended. And so I just was kind of around it all the time. And then, I picked up my first instrument was the trumpet in elementary school. And I actually went to college for that. I was a jazz performance major on the trumpet for a couple of years.
Cool.
At a conservatory down here in the city. But I really caught like the songwriting bug when I picked up the guitar when I was like 14 or 15, and I had like a crappy acoustic guitar that my parents bought me for years, and it just kind of like sat in the corner. And I was getting to an age where playing the trumpet isn't cool. Like I was playing jazz and classical music. That's not like a cool thing. And I was like, oh well, the guitar. And I had a lot of friends who did music as a hobby, whereas I was in the mode of my parents are not well off or wealthy, and they didn't really have much saved for me for college. So I knew that like if I was going to go to college, I needed to get a scholarship. And so I excelled at music, and I was like, okay, this is going to be my job. So I kind of interacted with the trumpet and with music at that time in my life as my job, because I knew I had to get to a level to where I could get a music scholarship. And so it just always felt like a lot of work. Didn't feel like a lot of fun. And I had all these friends who they get together in their garages and like jam out, and they just loved it.
Do this for fun? What?
Yeah, you do this for fun? Like, what is that like? And so I finally picked up that dusty guitar that was sitting in the corner, and I fastly became obsessed. The idea of like playing chords, the ability to play chords and melodies at the same time, just was mind-blowing to me, and it actually opened up my ears to be able to hear harmony better once I started playing a chorded instrument versus a linear single line instrument. And so I was a big, 14 at the time, like John Mayer had just come out.
Oh, I love
like his early,
Room of Squares is still one of my
Room for Squares.
Yeah.
Yep. So like Why Georgia and all those, they're killer songs.
Wonderland, all classic.
And then Dave Matthews Band was another one.
Oh,
so like
that was the first concert I went to, was Dave Matthews Band.
That's a good first concert.
Yeah.
That's a really good first concert. So so those two guys were like I really looked up to, because I thought like they're really good technicians at their instrument.
For sure.
And so I was just like starting to listen to a lot of them. And then there was like a surge of like singer-songwriter guitarists kind of in the early 2000s. So you had like Jack Johnson, you had Jason Mraz, you had like all these like male singer-songwriters. And you could throw a stone and hit one here in the States.
Yeah.
And so I got that bug, and even while in college, I was like trying to take guitar lessons from some of the like guitar majors, because I was like, I just want to get better at the guitar.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the beginning of a very long lifetime affair with the guitar and songwriting, specifically. I spent a little time in Nashville, and that's kind of where I got my passion for songwriting. And so and then it's just like a constant, to me it feels like a constant jigsaw puzzle.
It always is. Yeah. That's so cool.
Yeah, that's kind of the general arc, how I got started, at least.
Yeah, I mean, that's very interesting, because I mean, every story is different, and especially like what made you want to go and like study, what did you major in?
So I was a jazz performance major on the trumpet.
All right. Okay.
So I spent 2 years playing my trumpet like 7 hours a day.
Wow.
And studying jazz theory and classical music theory. I had to take that as like a prerequisite. And so it actually, for me personally, kind of ruined the art form for me, which is why after 2 years I stopped, because I lost some of the magic. You know, the beauty of jazz music is like it's improvised. There's a lot of improvisation.
It's the hardest genre, I think, to play.
Hands down. I agree.
Always the exception to the rule. Like my guitar teacher that I had, he was like, he just bleeds music. Like he doesn't know anything else besides music. And he's a like real like jazz artist. And he says, if you can't play jazz, you can play anything. And he always, like, when he tried to explain something to me, like, but in jazz, it's like completely different. I'm like, what?
Yeah, that sounds about right. So with all that, I really do have a feeling that like this is kind of probably bigger and deeper conversations for this podcast specifically, but I do feel like as we've continued to like turn music into turn it into an educational system, it's kind of stripped away some of the originality of some of the greatest artists that we've known, especially in jazz music and even pop music of like the early kind of mid-century 1900s and that kind of stuff. So that's just my personal kind of take, is that as this art form, as music is supposed to be traditionally passed down orally, we've turned it into this, we've figured out the system to produce a certain kind of musician that's going to be able to play at this kind of caliber. And it has positives and negatives on both sides, for sure.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, since we're touching on this subject, do you think that music theory you would say is completely necessary, or should it just be all like free and inspirational, or do you think there should be a balance? That's
a really good question. I would say that a healthy balance between the two. You know, my favorite songs, and we're talking about songwriting, so like my favorite songs are like 4-chord bangers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there's no secondary dominance, there's no, and most of them are triads.
Like
they're not
subdominant and all that.
Yeah, there's none of that stuff. So it's like however much I love music theory and like the ability and I appreciate and use the knowledge that I have gained through schooling and years of just kind of study. You don't need it. You don't need it to write a great song.
Yeah.
Does it help? 100% it helps.
For sure.
But I am in the vein that like probably everyone has one great song in them.
Yeah.
Just from like raw ability. Like you could have no ability, but I'm convinced that everyone can write a song.
Yeah.
And has it in them to synthesize it and even potentially put it to, you know, I'm with a 2-year-old and almost 2-year-old in the house. I'm constantly singing these kids songs.
Yeah.
And they're earworms, right? They're like, they just get stuck in your head. And they're all based around like the 1 and the 5 chord.
Mm-hmm.
There's only 2 chords in the whole song.
Yeah.
And yet they're universally known, like Itsy Bitsy Spider is universally known across the world. So there's something in that. Like there's something about the simplicity and nature of like what catches the human ear. And I've spent a lot of what feels like a lot of my adult life in songwriting chipping away at a lot of the formal education kind of things that they taught me. Anyway.
Yeah, it's very interesting because when I was learning the guitar, nobody even said anything about the theory behind it, like nothing.
Sure.
Just, oh, this is a G chord, this is a D chord. Like I had no idea that I could play a D in like 12 different ways, and that there are even versions, and what I didn't even know what the word meant. Like I'd be like, what are you even speaking English to me? Like and then once I went to Birmingham, England, and got accepted to study music there, obviously it was like a mandatory class to take was music theory. And I'm like, at the time I was playing 10 years and I was writing songs since I've been 12. So that was like 8 years of me writing songs and with no music knowledge at all. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to fail this, like flunk this class. I need to like really, you know, make an effort and really like learn. And so I did. And the more I learned about theory, the more it helped me in my songwriting, because once I got stuck, I'm like, all right, I'm using these 4 chords. So if I, you know, the scale, right, then I can kind of make a melody or whatnot. So, you know, it, in that sense, from having no music theory at all to having just the basics, just kind of open up this new world where I'm like, oh, because like sometimes like inspiration hits and you get a great chorus, but then you don't know how to write a verse or the bridge part or like a middle eight or whatever it is that you want. And that kind of helped me. So I'm like, oh, right, there are some tools that are helpful. But then again, like if you come from the completely other direction and you're just only theory, and you kind of become this robot where you're just like, all right, then this happens, and it takes the emotion completely out of the song, which is the purpose of a song, is to evoke emotions in the listener.
100%. And I think for me too, the other thing I had to break was this like technical proficiency like thing in my writing. So I would spend, when I first started writing, I was always I'm a singer last. So like my voice is the last thing that I developed as a musician. And it probably took the longest to develop just because that's how the voice matures and works. But when I was starting to write songs, I'd write these really complicated like guitar parts, and then I'd try to sing over them, and I physically could not do it because what I was doing here took so much mental capacity And people would hear me like, oh man, it's amazing that you can play that, but it wasn't a song.
Yeah.
You know, not in the classical sense of like verse, chorus,
Verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, double
or something
chorus.
you could, or something you could even potentially sell. It was a really great kind of idea as far as like a solo guitar piece, but that didn't make a full, you know, kind of singer-songwriter type song. And so it was probably those two things that I've spent a lot of times, and I've probably maybe these days have swung a little bit harder, you know, to the other side. And so I do think, like we've talked about, like there is a happy medium between, you know, being able to capture the emotion of a piece of art, but then also like pushing oneself's skill, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, I'm a big believer in finding balance, just period in life. But having that, you know, only theory or only just writing out of inspiration, I think gets you stuck either way. Yeah. So, yeah, but that was, I think, a challenge that I had to face.
Sorry. Hi, honey.
Come on. Hi,
this is
Ella?
Isla, yeah.
Isla, sorry, Isla. Hi.
She's talking to us all the way from Germany.
Yeah, I'm in Germany right now. Yeah. I saw your little video on Instagram where she was playing the harmonic.
Oh, I know, it's the best. She loves music. She loves it.
Oh,
we have are you familiar with the Wiggles? So it's like it's an Australian kids show actually.
Okay, I've heard of it, but
it's all music.
Okay.
She loves it. She dances and tries to sing along and everything. But okay, you want to say bye-bye? Can you say okay, we're gonna go find mama. She just woke up from her nap, so it's like snack time.
I'd be proud you do. Yeah, but is that cool that like how do you think as a parent like how that influences like little Isla?
Yeah, I mean, I have no like presumption of like what she will end up doing or being as an adult. Like like we're here as parents to like make sure she doesn't hurt herself and hopefully instill some like positive values in her life that help shape her and like treat human beings like human beings should be treated.
Yeah, exactly.
And if she ends up like taking to music, then that's amazing.
Yeah.
And if she doesn't and she's like, Dad, I don't want to do music, I'd rather play a sport or I'd rather read books or whatever, you know, that's okay too. So I know that she's gonna, because of who her mother is, Katie, my wife is, and because of who I am, I know that she'll have a deep appreciation for it, regardless if she interacts with it from a I want to create it standpoint or not. And she's already kind of shown that. I mean, she prefers to have music playing all the time.
That's so cool.
So she really enjoys dancing and moving to the music, and it's fun to watch her kind of like listen to a song and like find the parts that she loves. She loves to dance too.
Yeah, I saw that video.
Yeah,
it was so cute.
Like we have like a little ukulele that, you know, if I'm playing songs for her on my acoustic guitar, I'll give her the ukulele and she kind of tries to. It's really cute.
Oh,
I see you, honey.
She can be on. You can have her on the.
You want to come up?
That's totally cool. Hi.
Can you
I'm
wave?
just asking your daddy a few questions. How old is she again? You told me.
So she will be 17 months on December 27th.
Yeah, let's get talking about your song Stop Stand, because I really love it.
Oh, thank you. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm glad you found it.
Yeah, it's the song that I found on the playlist. That's how I found it, was through that song.
Okay,
and
right on.
it's just so chill, and it's such a it just gets stuck in your head, like the chorus.
Good.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah, really good job.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, just walk me through the process. Like, how did that happen? Who did you work with?
Yeah, so I had been sitting on that chorus for probably the better part of a year.
So catchy.
I kind of found, I literally fell upon it. I had this guitar part that wasn't the guitar part that I ended up playing, but I had this guitar part that I'd been playing for a while. So my process is usually like, I'll sit with a guitar and like kind of pluck through and see if I find, a melody or something that like catches me, or even like a chord progression that catches me. And then, I kind of go from there. So what happens most of the time is I have like a voice memo app, the voice memo app on your phone, and it's just chock full of like melodies and chord ideas.
Yeah.
And then I kind of go through life, and typically it happens when I'm walking my dog, because it's these days it's like the few alone times I get.
Yeah.
Especially with a little baby and quarantine and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
I'm walking my dog. I might be listening to music or not or something, and something will pop in my head. And I had that chorus for quite a while, kind of that stop, stand, lift up your hands, surrender to the beat and the melody.
Yeah, exactly.
line.
I wrote that down because I thought it was so cool.
Yeah, and I was trying to like figure out like, okay, how can I use, and actually the first time I thought about using that line was I cannot remember who it was, and I'm embarrassed to say so. But I was writing, kind of wanting to write almost like a protest song, and it was like well before all the George Floyd stuff that has happened in the last year.
All right. Yeah.
But here in America, it's never not there.
Yeah.
At least for me, and I think a lot of other musicians, and we're just very aware of like the racial inequalities that are happening in the United States specifically. So I had kind of like processed through, okay, like what if I were to write like a kind of like a protest song? And then I landed on this, like, I don't like this idea of like stop, stand, lifting up my hands it didn't feel like it had the weight that I needed to if I was going to write something like that. And so I shelved it for a long time. And then quarantine happened, and I'm like, man, I have a bunch of friends who are writing, putting out little like singles, because we're all stuck inside. We might as well just write songs, right?
Exactly.
And so I'm here I am again, like walking the dog, and I'm like, that line comes back up. I'm like, man, what is like, how does that line inform like what we're going through currently today?
Yeah.
And the song just kind of, it wrote itself in like 15 minutes from there.
Wow.
So I came back, I sat down, kind of plucked through the chorus, and I was like, okay. And then from there, I started like shaping the verses of, some of those lines of like, it feels like a movie, and like all these things that I feel like everyone in the world was feeling at the time.
Yeah.
And it just kind of flowed through. So to me, it feels like an escapist journey. Whereas like verse 1 is the, like, this is where we're at, like it's empty outside when I go outside, and that's weird. And it feels like a movie. And then you're like, okay, whatever, but I'm just gonna listen to this music and I'm gonna dance.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And then verse 2 is kind of like the longing, yearning of like, this is what I'd love to do right now that I can't. So that's kind of how the writing part came along. And it was really surprising to me, because I usually don't write songs that are that immediate. It usually takes me a considerable amount of time to like work through an idea. So it's always feels good when it does happen that way, and then it comes out on the other side like, oh, this is a cool tune.
Yeah.
So as far as like the production of it, so I sent it to a couple friends of mine, Gareth Spin, who actually ended up helping me produce it, and I actually wrote it almost like a acoustic folk kind of song, like really, really chilled out.
Yeah,
There's a
it
version
is
of it
cool.
on Spotify.
Yeah,
That
I
is
listened to it
acoustic.
as well. Yeah, and then on YouTube too.
Yeah, so that's super chill, like with the
Yeah,
lap steel. It's like ambient, like a little bit more
yeah,
ambient.
yeah.
And so that's how I kind of originally wrote it. And I was talking with my friend Gareth, who has played bass with me and for me for the last few years. He just moved to Arizona, which is a bummer.
Oh,
But
Arizona.
oh, really?
Yeah.
So funny. So we've worked a lot in the last probably 3 or 4 years together, work on music, and I sent it to him. He's like, "Hey, this is a great tune. Can you just like send me just the vocal part and like take the guitar part out?" And I was like, "Fine." And so I did, and then he sent me back, and it was probably a month later, and he sent me back almost the completed version of what you hear, with like the drum. At least the drum part didn't change. I redid all the electric guitar parts. All the electric guitar parts you hear, I wrote. But yeah, it was kind of like one of those like, this is my idea.
Yeah.
This is what I was hearing when I heard your song. And it's a pretty far cry from what I typically do. I kind of land in that kind of like more, kind of like country folk, blues rock kind of vibe now these days. And so it has a little bit more of like a, I don't know. I don't even know how to describe it. Yeah, it's just different.
It's a very relaxed kind of vibe. Like it's just again, like the chorus is just so catchy because it is surrender the beat to them. Like it's so if I mean we have music playing all the time, but especially if I have like a chore that I don't like doing, like washing the dishes or having to vacuum or whatever it is. Like I just put on a great song and then you're like, oh right, I'm just vacuuming, right? Or I'm just it just makes your day so much better.
That makes me so happy that you that's hit you that way, because to me it feels like a walking around song, right? Like it's that medium tempo. It feels like that song that comes on in the playlist and you're like, oh yeah, like this fits exactly what I'm feeling right now, or this like helps me move a little bit. And that's kind of what it ended up being, like
you're not rushing anywhere. It doesn't feel like that, I don't know, that intense. Like it has that perfect middle ground between not being like boring and too like I'm gonna fall asleep. Like I listen to it so I can fall asleep. Like it has that good middle ground between like just being that nice, like very chill, but still like the drums are just very I mean,
it moves,
but it moves. Exactly, it moves, and that's like really cool to have balance in there. So that's I don't know. It kind of drew me in. I couldn't explain it, and I'm like, I have to have them on this podcast. I need to know how he did it.
Yeah. So Gareth really did. I mean, he came up with those drum parts. I remember when he sent it to me for the first time. I was like, because it's the first song of mine that he's produced. I've worked with him a lot. He's played bass on in live bands that I put together. Like I said, he's a great musician. Huge head for like, he has a huge knowledge of just like the broad scope of what music is, and he listens to things that I would never think to listen to. And I think it helps him in all those things. So when he sent me like the original track, he was a little nervous, I think, for me to listen to it. And I was like, holy crap, is this the same song? Like, it doesn't even feel like the same song. And it wasn't like perfect by any means, but it was like very impressive. I was really impressed. And then I was like, man, we gotta like finish this. Like we can't, like this isn't an experiment. Like this is worthy enough to finish. And so a bunch of back and forth, between me recording here, and obviously we're in quarantine, so we can't see each other. Be with each other. So I'm here. He's at his apartment in the city, and we're just shooting things back via Google Drive. And it took probably longer than I had hoped it to take.
Mm.
And some of that was, you know, you adjust, your quarantine life adjusts, and you know, you lose some scope of time, you lose some bandwidth, especially as Isla got older, she starts moving, so it's like, it's not as easy just like put her down and like work on something.
Yeah, exactly.
Now she like doesn't want to sit down, so it's like
she's like, I'll be here now, I'm gone, I'll be here
yeah
now.
So I will take most of the blame for how long it took us to because I think it was like a 4-month process or 3-month process from like start to finish. But what came out, I'm really proud of, and I think it's unique for what I typically do, and it's really exciting for me. It was really exciting. It was a stretch artistically for me, and it was really fun to almost approach, like, especially like the guitars, to approach the guitars as like a session guitar player as opposed to the songwriter. That makes sense?
Yeah, totally makes sense.
And so that was really fun, and yeah, that's kind of the song story, I suppose.
Oh, wow. No, it's I think it's really cool because it's different with every song. Like every person I interview I love to hear the stories behind it, because it explains the song and makes it more valuable. I think is like, I get a deeper appreciation for, you know, the song. Like I interviewed someone last week, and she produced and wrote and recorded the entire song like in her room. She did not leave the room, like except for like the drummer. She like sent him like, there's like this drummer track on Logic that she like sent that off, and then he recorded it in and like sent it, but she never like once like left the room for the actual song. And I'm like, wow, like that just makes the song even cooler now, knowing that. So that's why I'm just always so interested in the stories behind it, because it just makes it just more interesting, I think, and valuable. Plus, so what do you do when you're like picking a producer? Is it important, or is it just, you know?
That's a good question. So I've primarily self-produced all of my own music. So this was really the first opportunity for me to like work with someone else in that close of proximity. Now I've produced other artists' music, so I've been on the other side, but I've never really worked with someone who is kind of helping me kind of like craft the message and the tonality of the music. And so I can't really give you a clear answer as far as working with Gareth. I know that he's been working on his production chops, and his mixing abilities and kind of recording abilities, and so we started working on music together. I was living in California, and he was living in Tennessee. And he moved back to Chicago, and then I moved back a year later. So it was like the first time in a long time that we were like in the same city. Wow. And so I had a bunch of songs that I had just in the can that I hadn't done anything with. And I was like thinking about like putting together an EP. So I called him. I was like, hey, like, listen to these songs. What do you think? Like, would you be willing to at least play bass? Like, I'm putting a trio together. Would you want to play bass? And like maybe we'll record it and see what happens. And he started like, he came over and he started like messing around with some of the songs, and he's like, man, like I think we can do some cooler stuff. So like he started coming over to my house, and we'd like get out the MIDI keyboard, and I played keyboard too, and so does he. And so we're just kind of like started like messing around just like with sounds. And so he had helped me kind of not necessarily full on produce, but at least like get some songs from like completed chord melodies to like a little bit more completed like band sounds. And then life got in the way, and we got really busy and kind of pressed pause, and then quarantine happened. And so when he came to me, he was like, I want to produce, like, will you let me produce this song? And I was like, sure, of course. Like, I trust you as a musician. Like, you're a great musician. So like, why would I even like bat an eye at that? So it was much more much more serendipitous, I think, than it was like I'm shopping for a producer. This is who I want to work for.
Yeah.
There are a list of producers that I would love to work with, but they're so far beyond probably where I currently am as an artist, and probably could even afford at this point. It's self-production and like working with friends is probably going to be the route for a while, and I like it that way.
Yeah.
Because it feels more communal than it does like, hey, I'm paying you to produce this song. I don't really know you, but like, I trust your ears because you've produced this many artists or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, I'd rather just go with someone who knows me as an artist and like knows what I like. And then in turn that I trust as a musician. And so that kind of, I think going forward, if I'm going to work with other producers, if I'm not going to self-produce, there's a short list of people that I would trust that are in probably my specific circle.
Yeah.
That aren't necessarily even producers. They're like other songwriters or musicians.
Yeah.
But they just are super talented and have an ear for arranging and music in general.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? That was like a longer answer.
No, it makes sense, because I mean, if you have the people around you already, then I mean, it would make sense, right?
Yeah.
So it's just like for people that, you know, are just getting that are new, that are listening and are new to the whole songwriting game and are like looking to team up with like a producer or something, or finding a producer, what tips would you give them, what to look out for, or
well, if you're just starting out, a really good place is like your local recording studio. So there's always, every time, no matter big or small, there's going to be someone who's either like a very serious hobbyist who has like a great home studio, or, you know, in metropolitan areas like Chicago or New York or anywhere around the world, you'll have recording studios. That's always a good place to start. And the recording studio is really interesting because you can hook up with people who are doing like internships.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good one.
You know what I mean? Or even like going to like the local universities who have music schools or music production programs.
Yeah.
I would probably go that route. And then if if someone is a beginning songwriter but has an incredible amount of finances behind them, I would say listening, like finding your favorite records and finding who produced those records. You know, or like who are your favorite like current, you know, top 10 songwriters of the last 10 years, and then finding out who's producing those records. And if you got the money, why not? If you can convince them to work with you. I mean, that's the hard thing. That route's a little bit harder. But I've had friends who have reached out to some of those connections. Producers are a little less, I feel like there's a little less walls around producers than there are like the celebrity, the songwriters, or the artists. And that's specifically in like the style of music that I do. I'm not really a pop writer or a singer, or a conventional pop music writer. And so, you know, I'm not trying to work with a big name pop producer, but I've had stories where like someone was like, oh yeah, like I had this song, and like on a whim I just like tracked this guy's email down and he agreed to do it, you know. So like it happens. You know, like you get to work with some pretty well-known producers, but I would say probably your best bet as a beginning songwriter is to I would probably go university route, like finding someone who's working on like engineering or music arranging or music production program, who has like a bent towards producing specifically, or like finding that intern. You know, like there are people who aren't quite doing it full time that want to, and that's probably most beginning songwriters too. They're like, hey, I'm not songwriting full time, I want to maybe someday. And so you try to seek out people that are in a similar stage that you're in, and then you can grow together, and then you actually do create like this little community, artistic community, where you got like your producers and then the musicians that you like to use and all these sorts of things. So
Yeah. That's really good advice. I didn't even think of universities. Duh. I don't know, it just didn't come to mind, but that it's a very interesting that you said like that you did most of your production yourself, because I mean I'm not a producer by any means, but like I can do like the basic like Logic thing, so I can at least record a demo and like send it to someone. But what would you say are like the biggest mistakes that like beginners make, or what advice would you give new songwriters when they're trying to produce their own stuff?
Yeah, a new songwriter, I would say I would say find, so this is an exercise I've actually been doing the last couple of years, is I've been trying to make, like I'd listen to a song that I like, and I try to recreate the vibe of that song.
Oh.
So there's this Nashville artist, songwriter named Patrick Droney, who is super talented, and he's got this one song that's just like stuck in my head. I was like, you know what, I think, and it's kind of got like an 80s piano vibe to it, like Bruce Hornsby 80s piano vibe thing going. And he's a guitar player, he plays a Strat like John Mayer, so he kind of has that like SRV John Mayer Strat thing going. And he's got this like husky, he's not a tenor by any means, he get this like really unique husky baritone voice. And I was like, really love the production on his first EP that he released himself. And I was like, I want to try to do that. Not that I'd ever release it, but just as the exercise of like understanding like what, like listening, being intentional about listening with discerning ears to figure out like, okay, what makes that work? You know, is it the kick drum? Is it this like pulsating bass thing? Is it just like the piano, like the reverbed out 80s pianos? Like, what is it in that cocktail that like makes it taste so good? You know what I mean? And so that's kind of, I wish I would have started doing that a lot sooner. But I didn't, because I'd spent a lot of time just like recording live instruments. And so I've shifted a little bit away from that, because the MIDI stuff is so good these days.
Yeah, it's true.
It's incredible. Like even in the last like 3 or 4 years, it's gone just like crazy, the quality of sounds that
and they're not even that expensive. Like you don't have to,
I mean, what you get with Logic is impressive. Like just Logic's base sound library is incredible. And then if you want to invest, you know, a few $100 here or $90 here, or Black Friday deals, like you can always find plugins that sound really good, that are affordable somewhere along the year if they're doing sales or whatever. So so that exercise has been pretty invaluable for me. And then I think the other thing is to take your time. I feel like, myself included, as like a young songwriter, like you get the song and you get so excited to get the song that you don't want to put the time in to do the song justice. Right? So it's like, oh, I got this song, I'm so excited about the song, I finished it, I want everyone to hear it. So then you kind of rush through the production process, and then you end up with things that aren't necessarily quality. Quality probably. And then the last thing is probably take the time to figure out your style and voice, like what you want it to be going in. Because the first record I released in 2011, I wrote those songs as like folk songs. Then I went into a cabin, the classic story. I went to a cabin for like 2 weeks with my drummer and bass player and a recording rig. And we just like took those songs and we turned them on their head. And it was an awesome experience. I wouldn't change it for the world. But like the song, and we were super excited, but because I didn't have like a clear vision for what I wanted it to be, those arrangements to me haven't aged well. So as I listen back, and I don't listen to them often, but when I have, I'm like, man, like that's a good song, and it could have been really great if I would have had like a clear vision of like this is what it's supposed to be, or like even an idea of like a clear sound, style, sound, like those kind of things. So I think, yeah, those three things, like don't rush it, have a clear vision, style and sound, and take your time. I think are kind of big ones.
That's good advice. I think because it's different with everyone else, but I think there's nothing for me to add there.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that everyone's process is really different too. I typically won't start any like I'm not a top line writer, so I write songs like as entire songs. So I won't actually start to record, like officially record anything until the song is complete. Like chords, melody, lyrics is done. Okay. So like, which makes probably the recording and production process a little bit longer than some. I know people who will like start the production process and the songwriting process kind of like in tandem.
Like parallel to each other, yeah.
Yeah, and so like by the time, and that can help inform what's happening here with with like lyrical choice or melody choice.
Yeah.
It just forces me, I just can't work that way. And so I'd rather have like a complete like musical sketch of, hey, this is this is like verse chorus order. These are the chords for the most part. This is the melody we're going with. Lay down a scratch track, and then you start building from there.
Yeah.
That's kind of the production process that I've taken for a long time. I've tried kind of like going the opposite way and doing all the production first, and then writing to like top line writing to that. Yeah. It's really difficult for me to do.
Yeah.
I can do it, but it's not natural, and maybe I just need to do it more. Yeah. Probably just need to do a lot more. But I get inspired by like a good hook or a good idea. Like fleshing out the idea to me is, especially like a lyrical idea is the hardest part, but is also the most exciting. Because it feels the most fulfilling for me. Yeah. Because the music, like candidly, like the music stuff comes pretty easy. Like playing it and like coming up with the chord, like that stuff is really natural to me. The lyrical content, figuring out different ways to say things in a clever, unique way, that's a lot harder and challenging for me. And so I find that part a lot more gratifying. Yeah. Because I have to work harder.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. No, totally. I mean, like I said, it's different for everyone. Like that's why I love songwriting. Really, is you never know what's gonna happen. You never know when inspiration is gonna hit. You never know. Like the amount. I've never written the song the same way twice, ever. Yeah. Like you wake up at 2 a.m, you write it at the back of your physics homework, you had a conversation on the phone, and then 20 minutes later you wrote a song about it. Like, I mean, it really just kind of, however, you just kind of take it as it comes. And what my guitar teacher Paul Fode said, he said, when I said like I can't do this, and he's like, no, it's just unfamiliar. And I'm like, oh right, I just haven't done it enough, or I haven't practiced enough, or whatnot. So that's kind of what just popped into my head. But yeah, so if there's something that you feel like you can't do, it's not that you can't do it, it's not just, you just haven't done it often for you to come naturally in that sense. Yes. So yeah, he was a wise teacher, or is. But
yeah, sounds amazing.
Yeah, he's a cool guy. Like if you could meet him, you'd probably talk for days. I think you two would get along really well.
Yeah. Well, let's set that up.
Yeah, for like
podcast season 2.
Yeah.
Roundtable sessions.
Yeah, the round. Yes. There we go. Okay, well, last question, and then I'll let you back off to your family. But this has been just so amazing, and thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you.
But what is something that 2020 has taught you?
Oh man, that's a good one. Probably gratitude for like the things that I do have, and not to take things for granted. I think those are kind of the two things. I think a lot of times, especially like in like America or probably any Western developed country, that you have like means, you know, you have extra. We can so often take things for granted. The last concert that we went to, the last live music experience we had was, do you know who Theo Katzman is?
No.
So he plays and sings with a band called Wolfpack. I don't know if you've ever like gotten into Wolfpack at all. They're kind of like a neo-funk. Hold on, my daughter's crying. Hey, what's wrong? Come here. They're like a neo-funk band. You should look them up. You'll like them.
Yeah, I'll look them up right after this.
They're super fun. But we went to, he was touring and we went to a concert, and I can't stop thinking. I mean, it was literally a week before the shutdown. It was like the weekend before the shutdown here happened that we went to this concert. And, you know, like at the time I was taking that for, I mean, I enjoyed every minute of it, but like, it didn't seem special.
Yeah.
Because I go to concerts all the time.
All the time, yeah.
You know, it's like something that is part of it's like within the fiber of our lives.
Yeah.
And so I think, and then on top of that, like just 2020 has created opportunity and space for me to realize like how much I actually do have, right? Yeah. Like I have 2 amazing daughters. I have an incredible wife. I have great friends, a great creative community that I'm a part of. And that's enough for me. Yeah. Like if I never write a great song again, that's okay.
Yeah.
Because this is enough.
Yeah. Aww.
You know, not to say I'll ever stop. I'm not gonna stop. Yeah. That it's just, I think you know the question of like, what have you learned in 2020?
Yeah.
That's probably been, is that like, this is enough.
Yeah. Nothing to add there. That's beautiful. I think 2020 has been very humbling, I think.
Yeah. How about you?
That exact same answer. I actually just put out a video today where I talked about gratitude and not taking things for granted, because it can just be gone just like that. Entitlement. I think that's what bugs me a lot.
Same.
It really, like, people feel entitled to having something, owning something, and when you're grateful, you're like, thank you for this. Thank you for, you know, being here, taking the time, like taking so much time out of your day, talking to me. Thank you for, you know, that we have Wi-Fi connection, that we have soon, that we can even talk right now, or, you know, stuff like that. So when you're grateful, you don't feel like you're entitled to anything, because you're grateful for what you have now. And I think if I could do one thing perfectly, it would be to be grateful. Really.
That's a good word.
Really
I like that. Yeah. Because everything that we have is undeserved.
Basically, yeah.
So.
I mean, it doesn't matter how hard you work. Like, everyone's working hard. Like, it's like, oh, please do this, please do that. I've worked hard for it. I'm like, so did everyone else. Like, that's like the minimum requirement I feel to get or do anything.
Sure.
It's like people think that because they've worked hard that they're entitled to something, and I'm like, no, we're all working hard, we're all busting our butt and trying to like get somewhere, right? But and, I don't know, that's just personally what I have a problem with. So I think gratitude is something that I've been focusing on more lately, and it's made me so much happier just at
Good.
work. And I work at the same place, I have the same people around me, but the only thing that has changed is really like mentally was just switching to that more grateful attitude, and it's made me so much happier.
That's great. That's great.
So I want to take that into 2021 and
don't lose it.
So that's why I made a video, so I can like remind myself every time.
That's good. That's good.
Thank you so much, Jeremiah, for taking the time. Really, I appreciate it, especially it's like such a big chunk, and especially if you have small kids, then
it's okay.
They're constantly needing your attention. Is there anything, well, I know that there's something that you would want to talk about before
so we were kind of talking about like before we got on officially, we were talking about like projects we were working on and that kind of stuff. And so I talked a lot about Gareth, my production partner, for the Stop Stand. He just released a single under the moniker G Spin, so give that a listen. It's really good, catchy, upbeat, like positive stuff that he's putting out. Awesome. And then I play with a songwriter here in the States named Nicole Amin, and I'm in the process of helping her record some guitars, I think in the next week or so. And I think her song will come out. I think she's trying to get it out before the year's out, but it'll probably be early 2021. But both of those artists are close to me, and they're incredibly talented. I'm hoping to release some new stuff. I got about 3 or 4 songs that are in their final stages, so I'm trying to trickle them out, new songs out in 2021, and that's kind of it. Follow me on the gram. You see cute pictures of my daughter in gear. That's what I post.
That's what I wanted to ask. Like, where can people find you? Obviously, like.
So I spend a lot of time on Instagram. I think I've been a big Instagram fan for a long time. I think it's an awesome platform. I love pictures and I love beauty, and it just hits me. So Instagram is Jeremiah Higgins. You can also find me on my website at jhigginsmusic.live. And that's got all the links for all my social stuff, Spotify, and all those sorts of things. Those are kind of two places I spend most of my time, I suppose.
Okay, that's good. I'll link everything up as well, so people will have no trouble finding you, because I'm a fan. I definitely am, and
thank you.
I just love talking to people like you, and that are just great, just people, and just love music and like to share it. And so thank you for doing that. I truly appreciate that. So thank you for being you and being an awesome dad and dog owner and musician. And
hey, we're all just trying our best to make the world a little bit brighter, you know what I mean? And so I think what you're doing here with the podcast is awesome. It's a killer platform, and I look forward to kind of following it and watching it grow.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Then I won't keep you any longer, and have a great day for you.
Yes, evening for you.
For me, well, all the best.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, I would appreciate a thumbs up. And if you want to see more videos like this that are about songwriting, then hit the subscribe button and the bell notification, but only if you want to learn more. If not, then that's fine too. If you want to get into songwriting, want to learn how to write songs, then click the link below for musicians' secrets, and you can learn everything you need to know in the link below. Bye!